Hello, class. We're going to continue our read aloud A Week in the Woods by Andrew Clements. We left off on Chapter 3. And Chapter 3, there's the book cover, by the way. And Chapter 3 is called Not the Same. Anya shook him gently. Mark, we're here. Mark sat up in the back seat and looked around, groggy and confused. Then he climbed out, but he didn't follow Anya toward the door on the far side of the garage. Instead, he walked to the back of the car. He stood on the concrete just inside the garage, blinking as his eyes adjusted to the late afternoon light. Looking around, Mark thought maybe they'd driven to a different planet. The storm that had promised 1 inch of snow for his old home had dropped 8 inches onto his new one. His eyes followed the deep tire tracks in the new snow. The twin ribbons marked the narrow roadway that stretched across the field and into a distant stand of pines. Closer to the house, the driveway ran between 2 fenced pastures, and every 15 feet or so, a pair of tall sticks had been stuck into the ground on either side to help drivers when the snow got deep, like today. The snow had been plowed up high on both sides of the road, evidence of previous snowstorms. Looking to his right, Mark saw the front of the original house. The realtor's brochure had said the old part of the house had been finished in 1798. The new part had been finished about 2 weeks ago. 5 new bedrooms, 4 new bathrooms, a big family room, a full office suite, an exercise room, an indoor lap pool, and a 3-car garage, plus a separate living area for Leon and Anya. The new part of the house was almost 3 times larger than the original, but it didn't look that way. Except for the garage, the additions had built onto the back of the house and extended downward along the slope of the land. The only way to see the true size of the place was to walk all the way around it. A gust of wind swirled some powdery snow down from the roof of the garage. Mark shivered, and as if she'd seen him, Anya stuck her head out the mudroom door and called, "Too cold, Mark. Come, get your coat and hat." Mark stood staring out at the snow another minute or two, then turned and walked slowly across the polished concrete floor to the back door. When he came into the kitchen, Anya said, "I'm going to make us a quick supper. Your coat is in the closet there behind you. Back inside in 15 minutes, okay?" Mark said, "I'm not going out," and turned away from her to look around the room. Like the house, the kitchen was part old and part new. On the old side, Leon had already built a fire. The huge fireplace was like a little room made of stone and mortar. Mark could have walked all the way into it. There was even a small granite bench built into one side of it. A heavy copper pot hung from an iron hook above the andirons, a reminder that this fireplace had once been the center of the kitchen. Mark went out through a low doorway and wandered through the dining room, then a study, and a small sitting room. The ceilings were low, and the walls were painted in deep greens and blues. There were old-fashioned chairs and tables with braided rugs covering the wide floorboards. All the lamps had bulbs shaped like candle flames. Everything tilted, floors, walls, and ceilings, and the rooms felt cramped and dark. The small windows didn't let in much light. Mark studied the thick shutters to the right and left of each window. They weren't like the shutters in their family room in Scarsdale. These shutters were solid wood with broad iron hinges and sturdy latches. They weren't there to look nice or to give a little privacy. These shutters had been made to keep things out. The old living room had another huge fireplace, though not as deep as the one in the kitchen. This one was made of brick with a broad wooden mantel. Mark went to the tall cabinet built into the wall on the left side of the fireplace and pulled the door open. He'd read about this cupboard in the brochure that the real estate lady had sent to his parents. It was a firewood bin, almost empty at the moment. Mark pushed on the back of the cupboard, and the panel swung inward, just as the brochure had said it would. In the dim light, Mark could see the narrow staircase. It led up to a secret room, and people believed it had been used to shelter runaway slaves on the Underground Railroad. Leaning forward and looking up into the gloom, Mark thought, plenty of time to explore tomorrow. That was true, but Mark knew the real reason he didn't climb over the logs and go up the stairs. He didn't like to be alone in the dark. Mark pulled the panel shut, closed the cupboard door, and moved on. The new part of the house didn't impress Mark. Sure, everything was gorgeous, every rug, every antique, every painting. Sure, everything was designed perfectly, from the octagonal sunroom to the home theater installation to the pink granite lap pool. Spacious rooms, beautiful materials, rich furnishings. But Mark knew how easy it had been for his parents to write the big checks. He knew how easy it had been for his mom to pick the best architects and designers and decorators. And since Mark knew that, it all seemed ordinary to him. Except for the views. Mark had no defense against the beauty of nature. The house was perched in the middle of a large upland meadow with stunning views in every direction. The architect had made sure that each oversized window was placed for maximum impact. At the landing on the staircase leading up to the bedroom, Mark stopped to stare into the distance. The sky was clearing from west to east, and where there had been solid gray 20 minutes ago, now streaks of pink and gold spread along the underside of the clouds. The dark pines along the ridge, the tracery of leafless birch and maple trees, the rocky outcroppings, everything stood out in sharp relief against the blazing sky. And off to the east, the white mountains lived up to their name. Standing still, Mark drew in a deep breath as if to taste the air, and he wished he had gone outside instead. Supper time! Mark pulled his eyes away, the spell broken. Coming! Tomato soup, grilled ham and cheese, peeled carrot sticks with ranch dip, chocolate milk, and fresh apple pie with vanilla ice cream. Anya knew all Mark's favorites, and she'd made sure to have them on hand for the first meal at his new home. Leon took a loud sip of soup from a mug, then wiped at his mustache with a napkin. So, he said, what do you think of the place? Pretty great, eh? Mark shrugged. Yeah. Leon hadn't kept it a secret that he loved the whole idea of moving north. Mark's father had sent him up to the new house twice in the past month. Leon needed to learn all about the water system, the backup electrical generator, and the security system. The house even had its own water tower and sprinkler system because the nearest fire department was over 10 miles away. Leon gestured over his shoulder. The mountains. You saw them? Mark nodded. Uh-huh. Leon winked at Anya. The White Mountains are not so nice as the Ural Mountains, but they'll do. Don't you think? But I am not happy about the soil here. Bad. Very bad. Mark took another bite of his sandwich. He didn't know that much about Leon and Anya, but he knew they had lived in central Russia before coming to America. Anya had taught at a nursery school, and Leon had worked on a potato farm. In Scarsdale, Leon had taken over part of the side yard and planted a garden. From June to October, he and Anya had enjoyed a steady harvest of homegrown vegetables. After supper, Leon smiled at Mark and said, Come, I'll show you our new apartment. Through a door at the rear of the kitchen, a short stairway went down to a small living room with 2 easy chairs, a couch, and a pair of end tables. Nothing fancy, but comfortable and homey. Leon pointed to his pride and joy, his big screen TV. See? 112 channels now. Satellite. Very clear. Mark nodded. Great. There was a small kitchen off the living room with a simple wooden table and 2 chairs. There was a bathroom, a roomy bedroom, and like the rest of the addition, everything was fresh and new. The views from these windows were not as broad as the ones from the upper levels, but the scenery was just as dramatic. The sunset was past now, and it was dark enough to see a few faint stars above the snowy hilltops to the east. Anya came down the stairs, and Leon went to meet her, putting out his hand and bowing like a fancy gentleman. Welcome to your castle, my lady. Anya smiled shyly and said, Don't be foolish, Leon. Mark felt awkward, like a stranger in their home. He said, I'm pretty tired. He turned and trotted up the stairs, and he didn't answer when they both called good night after him. Mark found his room. They had done what he'd told them to. Same bed, same bedspread and drapes, same carpets and bookcases, same desk and dresser, and he could tell Anya had tried to arrange his stuff just like it had been last week. But it wasn't the same. Nothing was the same. Mark lay down on his bed. He didn't even take off his shoes. He pulled his old down comforter up around his chin and lay still, staring at the perfectly smooth ceiling in his new room. An hour or so later, His eyes closed, and he fell asleep with the lights on. All right, that's the end of chapter 3. We'll get to chapter 4 tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed today's chapter, and we will see you tomorrow.